Hello friends, now I am discussing here with you about First World War, the incidents and its effects. Right? So we have discussed in the last period that due to the killing of Prince of Austria, the rivalry and enmity between Austria and Serbia reached to its height, and Austria blamed Serbia for killing of their prince. So, according to that, Serbia was found guilty by Austria, and Serbia ignored the warning. On other side, Austria was not ready to listen anything about Serbia from Serbia's side, and they declared war. Right? We discussed this. But this was the beginning. But I could say that in the whole war, you can see no matter of the Austrian Serbia remained. Means the whole war diverted from Austrian Serbia's point to the war between Germany and their allied countries against allied nations with France, England. Right? So the war front started in Austria and Serbia but was diverted to the other one. In the First World War, actually 24 nations were with allied nations. So you can ask me question about who is allied nations. America, England, France were allied nations, and Germany is leader of the Axis nations, and Axis nations were 4. So when the First World War started, it was not seemed to be a world war, but it was simply war between two nations, Austria and Serbia, as I have told, but diverted to be world war. Germany took advantage at so many fronts, achieved important victories in Europe, including destroyed French army, used submarines, destroyed ships of allied nations. So almost you can say Germany was having upper hand in most of the time in the war. Used tanks, poisonous gas. This was used in the First World War. Right? It was not a time for the atom. In those days, atom bomb was not made. So it was not used. But most of the time Germany was having upper hand. In 1917, due to the Russian Revolution, Russia was bound to withdraw from the war, and Germany was seemed to be very strong over other countries. But in meantime, there was one incident which changed scene of world, and it was destruction of neutral country America's Lusitania steamer. I repeat, America's steamer Lusitania was destructed with their 147 American soldiers. So, up to 1917, I repeat, up to 1917, America was completely out of World War. So, they had not taken anyone's side. But now, as America entered, the scene of the World War changed. Here so many incidents started to happen. Not only America, but Panama, Greece, Cuba, China, Syria. See, in 2020, we can see the America and China are in opposite situation. But in First World War, China was with Allied nations, means England, France, America. And in that way, the side of the Allied nations became more stronger and powerful. German army was fighting since 4 years, so it was their disadvantage first. Second, America was completely new and they had their own reason. They had their own reason. Remember. So in that way, the whole war scenario was changed. German troops not withstand against American army, and Germany's side started to surrender somehow early, as like Bulgaria surrendered and joined Allied nations in 1918 September. Turkey and Austria joined Allied nations in October 18. See, here now you can see the name of the Austria. Earlier, Germany supported Austria. Serbia was being supported by France. So, earlier in last lecture I discussed about Frankfurt Treaty in 1871. Germany and France entered in the war. due to the earlier 1871 Frankfurt Treaty. France had own reason to give defeat. And to get back Alsace and Lorraine regions, mineral rich regions, to get back. It was their own reason. So, when Germany supported to the Austria, naturally France supported to the Serbia. But after that, no talk of Austria and Serbia comes out. Now you can see, in October 1918, Austria joined hands with Allied nations. So now Germany remain alone. There are so many supporting nations changed side. So in that way, Germany was unable to fight against now larger group, because earlier I have told 24 nations inside of Allied nations and 4 nations inside of Axis nations. German leader William Kaiser ran away. Nobody knows about his history later. And Germany was bound to surrender to the Allied nations. They surrendered and signed ceasefire treaty. Remember the word I used, ceasefire treaty. So the ceasefire treaty means postponement of war. One person surrender, says I would not like to fight. The others must agree to sign. Get signed from the surrendering side. So in that way, the ceasefire treaty was the first. Thereafter, the Treaty of Versailles took place. In the effect of World War, we discuss it later. But first here remember, which war started in 1914 was ended in 1919 with signing Treaty of Versailles. Right, my friends? So remember, the beginning was with war between Austria and Serbia, ended with signing Treaty of Versailles in 1919. So this is the situation which I explained about the First World War. Now I am going to discuss effects of First World War. So as according to the book, 4 points are given. Destruction of man and material, social change, the Treaty of Versailles, and long-term effects. But I want to discuss in some different manner, and that is, first I discuss Treaty of Versailles, because after the war immediately was Treaty of Versailles. So the first result is Treaty of Versailles that I am discussing now, and in a separate question it could be asked Clear? So, at the end of First World War, unconditional surrender by Germany in front of Allied nations was the immediate result. Allied nations started peace process in Paris. In this peace process, 58 commissions were formed and 145 sessions were organized. Means the Germany had to sign this treaty, had to join this peace process also. In this peace process, the agreement was signed by Germany and the agreement was made by America. The treaty was signed in Mirror Palace of Paris. At the Hill of Versailles. So it is known as Versailles Treaty. Sometime in examination, the explained term Versailles Treaty could be asked, right? During the peace process, 4 provisions were made in Treaty of Versailles. The first provision is regional agreement. Second one is about reduction of troops and disarmament. Third one was agreement of distribution of gains from warfare, and fourth is other provisions. So when you discuss about Versailles Treaty, first you have to write down when and where it was started to meet. What is it called? What are its sections? What are its commissions? What are its sessions? These main points you discuss first. Now we start to discuss about what the America had done in the Versailles Treaty. The American President Woodrow Wilson, British Prime Minister Lord George, French President Clemenceau, and Italian President Orlando played important and vital role in this treaty. So remember that this treaty was made by America, England, France, and Italy. Here you remember one thing more. In the First World War, Italy was against Germany. In Second World War, we see that Italy was with Germany. So as the time change, the nations are changing their side. And today, in 2020, we see that America and China are against of each other, who were in 1718 with each other in one side. So I said the time change, nations, side, politics and situation also change. According to this Treaty of Versailles, the first point was a war fine of 6.5 billion pound was imposed on Germany. Means all had understood that Germany is responsible only for this war. Right? The second point, Germany had to give their Ruhr region to the France. Third point, Germany's Rhine River was needed to open for the all countries as international sea route. See, the river was from Germany was taken. Their region was taken and most of the war fine was imposed over only Germany. You see this. The fourth is Rhineland region near French border of Germany was disallowed from being fortress. Means Germany cannot make the protection wall after war now in the Rhineland region, and this region was mineral rich area. It had to be handed over to the France for 15 years. So actually you can see that France had taken revenge of the Frankfurt Treaty in this Versailles Treaty. In the treaty, Alsace and Lorraine were taken away from France. Now you see which regions of Germany are being taken by France. Next point, German organizations were confiscated. Confiscated means taken away to administrate from Germany. Actually, when William Kaiser escaped, after that in Germany, the democratic government came and they had signed this treaty. They were not more powerful due to the destruction in the war, and they were bound as being the defeated nation. So whatever being said by the victorious nations was even not by willing but as being bound to sign. Alsace, next point, Alsace and Lorraine were taken back from Germany to the France. See here, the Frankfurt Treaty's revenge is being completed. I time by time remind you the Frankfurt Treaty, right? Beside this, Germany had to give France and other allied nations large quantity of iron and coal annually as the benefit of war. So you can see all bindings are being burdened on Germany. Without their willingness, it was forcibly bound. That is the important what I mean to say. And on gunpoint, Germany signed this treaty. But remember, again I say, any treaty never ends war. But always, all war treaties after the war, when it is being signed between victorious and defeated, it sows seeds of next war. Remember this. So after this war, when the Germany was completely destroyed, they were bound to sign. It is true. But with that, in Germany, the government was become more weakened, and the future, the emergence of history became possible just due to the anger by this treaty arised in the people of Germany. So remember, the Versailles Treaty was being signed by Germany forcibly and on gunpoint. Right, my friends? So here I discussed about Treaty of Versailles with you. Very detailed and complete explanation I have given about it. Now I am explaining some immediate effects. The second effect is 6.5 crore people in all over the world took part, and 2 crore injured, 70 lakhs became permanently handicapped, and 1 crore died. See, this is not the 2020s world. I'm talking about 1914 to 1918 period. So in those days, the population of the world was not so more like today. Remember this. And even then, 6 crore people were involved in the war. Out of them, 1 crore lost their lives. 2 crore were partially injured. 70 lakhs were permanently handicapped. It means most of the countries had suffered in the war. Lots of the epidemics arose after the war. So what exactly losses, damage is unable to be counted. But it could be said that the economically it had broken backbone of the world for some time. Okay, here after the entry of the America, the scenario of the war was changed. Everybody know this. So in that way, who entered last was seen to be hero in the war. In both the world wars, you can notice America entered last and declared as the hero in the end of war. America is always taking calculating steps whenever it required. That is the one thing which I have noticed. Now we move to discuss third effect. What were the social change? If we discuss about social change, it must be seen that female became more powerful after the war. Why? Women had to care for the family now because most of the males were in the war. So during the war, the rights of female were started to increase their importance. Lots of the people lost their lives. Students were bound to leave their education. So in that way, this world war had destroyed lots of the families, and women were bound to care the families, so their self-confidence started to be increased. So wherever the negativity is something, any positivity is there also. It has seen here that the importance of the female started to rise. Female started to step out from the home and took over professional fields in their hands. In 2020, nobody says that female are only in the home. It started to change by this war. Remember, right, my friends? Now I discuss some long-term effects. The first long-term effect was revenge not ended but increased as the Versailles Treaty. We all know this. The expectation of peace may establish with this, but I think so it was not done. But with intention to establish peace, one first peace institution of the world was started. It was League of Nations. That is good and positive effect of this war. Here the another enmity was started to seen between democratic nations and socialist nations. Now you can ask me what's the meaning of socialist nation? The country which is completely controlled by any government, no power remain with the hands of people as like the democracy, and every decisions are being taken by the government. it is called socialist government. And Russia was seen to be socialist country because there are so many historical events were taking side by side to the ended time of the war, because in 1919 in Russia there was one revolution took place, and Russia's king, he is known by the name as Tsar, T-Z-A-R, Tsar. He was also escaped, and in his place the socialist leader Lenin came to the power. So the Russia was earlier in monarchy under the control of king, now became the socialist. As being a socialist, they were not allowed in the League of Nations. So by the First World War's end, the enmity between democratic country and the socialist country were started to sink. Here you remember that the seeds of Second World War started to be sown in the end of First World War. It is the long-term effect which seen after 20 years in 1939. Right, my friends? So here I conclude the discussion of effects of First World War and discussion about the First World War. Right, my friends?